Her Majesty Claudia, Part 3. So, in the first two parts of Her Majesty Claudia, I spoke about how being in a position of opulence can turn a person into a very bad person, and how um, you can spoil a person's morality just by handing them everything and them not having to struggle. Um, in this iteration of the series, I talk about accountability. I talk about the enablers to the dynamic. I talk about the impact on morality. I talk about the roles that the enablers play in the rulers, so to speak. Um, and then I talk about the slogans that are used to keep the people who are in this position of power in that power. So, with Her Majesty Claudia Part 3, it's largely talking about women, children, and emotional men. In this particular iteration, I'm going to specifically talk about the modern woman, typically the woman between the age of 18 and 30 years old. This could be daddy's little girl. This could be a woman who's never really had to struggle or anything. Dad has always come through for her, giving her, rent, or giving her, which isn't bad, by the way, for people to support you. That's a different thing. Giving her a car, giving her, all these little things. Where it becomes an issue, I think, is when there are no attempts to hold a person accountable, and I think this is what can create a tyrant, and has created a tyrant in a lot of people. Um, so the dynamic, the main aspect of this dynamic is the lack of accountability. But then the lack of accountability is enforced by parents. So it's enforced by mom, dad, brother, colleagues, maybe guys who want to get with a specific type of woman. Then they'll just kind of write off any type of behavior that they're exhibiting just to get with them, right? So this teaches the woman that she can just do whatever she wants and there's no repercussions for her actions. Um, so these women who are on this throne, so to speak, their moral compass is emotion, and the people who worship them, um, they worship emotion, and it's almost like um, if you wanted an idea what it would be like to be ruled by women, particularly the women who are, I would say, animus possessed, who don't have a sense of accountability and can't really reason past their own current moment. They can't look to the greater picture of things, or at least perhaps they're unwilling to. Um, so um, the people who are the women and the people in particular who are in this position of being worshipped and being given the phrases, do whatever makes you feel happy, do what makes you feel right, do what feels right to you. That's like a verbal license to essentially not be accountable for anything, not be accountable for any of your actions. And the enablers, that's their role. Their role is saying these kind of phrases to these people over and over and over again, to the point where the person believes that they can just hide any wrongdoing that they do. Um, this keeps their reputation from falling to abysmal levels. Um, it A lot of times the enablers, they create ways out of conflict for these individuals. In this particular case, in my personal example, would be my ex fiance. Um, a lot of her behaviors were just kind of written off as not serious, and a lot of them were undiscovered as well. Um, I think there was possibly an embarrassment for the type of behavior that was exhibited, but then What does this do when you take away uh, that aspect of moral development from a person? Um, you take away the part where they have to face what they've done to someone else. Um, this kind of creates a really, really bad person. And sometimes the person may not even be aware that they're bad, because from what I recall, there were qualities about my ex that were actually good. Um, so whether she was conscious of what she was doing was bad, or whether it was bad or good, I'm not entirely sure 100%. Um, so neoteny, I think neoteny is another aspect to this dynamic, and I think the daddy's little girl aspect of things is daddy's little girl is an aspect of um, the Majesty Claudia dynamic, because neoteny can lead to a very quick drop in morality, simply because we always have this desire to protect things that are small and things that elicit empathy. And neoteny, it's literally the definition of neoteny: features that enable us or embolden us to protect whatever creature has those features. And this means that accountability could easily slip through the cracks just by nature of biology. Um, so, yeah, that's kind of the main point. One of the things I noticed with the fiance, the ex, was that a lot of the things she did, a lot of the decisions she made, even after making terrible decisions, her family would still say things like, "Do what feels right. Do what makes you, whatever makes you feel happy is what we want for you." Right? They never gave her any guidance or any type of like roadmap as to what to do. So it's kind of a really messed up dynamic when you think about it. It's like um, you have this person being told to do things based off of how they feel, based off of intuition, which intuition in itself isn't a bad thing. It's a very good thing. But I think the issue is there's no real, it's kind of like half of the story, right? There's no template to follow. You're just simply limboing through life, and you're telling a person, hey, keep fumbling through life, right? um, the extreme danger of it is that you can end up teaching someone to harm others without them actually knowing that they need to go and they need to learn from those mistakes, and they need to apologize, and they need to ask for forgiveness, and they need to develop character and things like that. um, this is something that I hope I can learn from myself, just going through it, because in the breakup that I had, it was one of the biggest frustrations is that I couldn't get closure, but then also a lot of the issues that were caused on the other side were never called out, and there was never any examination for poor behavior. Um, I think I did more examining of poor behavior than the other side, which um, now I can kind of understand why guys simply just leave situations altogether, um, or just people in general, because if the other person is not willing to be accountable for their actions, um, then you almost just have to walk away without a protest. Uh, No, especially for women, if you're just trying to, get them to say stuff or say what they did wrong and stuff, and you're getting all emotionally riled up and angry and stuff like that. Um, guess what that shows to a lot of them? It shows that you care too much, and that caring too much, that doesn't make them like you more. It's almost like they're praising their value and saying, okay, this guy clearly cared too much, so he must not be worth anything. So me moving on was the right idea, right? As messed up as that is. Um, so an example of this dynamic, Greta Thunberg or Thornburg, I believe is her name. She speaks about um, she speaks about the climate a lot, and people just blindly follow her. They don't really look into the origins of the the um, WEF. They don't look into the origins of the message that she's saying or anything like that. They just assume that she's doing something good and great because she's a kid, right? Because of neoteny. But then underneath that neoteny hides a lot of evil and a lot of darker things that people aren't even aware of, right? um, I think a lot of guys encounter this with their girlfriends, their fathers and their mothers and their brothers and their best friends. A lot of times they'll uh, however the girl feels about you is how everyone else will feel about you. It's like they're just blindly following the emotion of the person who you're going out with or who you're with, right? So if she feels like, oh, he's amazing and things like that, then you're amazing. But if she's like, oh, he's awful, then guess what? The mom thinks you're awful, the dad thinks you're awful, and if she changes her mind again, then you're not awful again, right? um, it's a weird dynamic, but it kind of gives me a hint as to what it would actually be like to be under the rulership of a woman who has that kind of moral growth, um, who has that kind of moral development. Um, so another aspect, and this is a longer video. I didn't think this would be this long. Um, Reputation is far more important to people in this dynamic than integrity. And you see people, the enablers, one of their main roles is to keep the reputation of the individuals who are leading through emotion from dropping. They create the easiest ways out of conflict for these individuals, and in doing this, they eliminate tools for moral growth. Um, so whatever the person feels is their compass in life, it's their moral compass in life. And the individuals that they trample on, those people are infinitely the enemy. And there's never an examination of their side of the story, because their side of the story will do what? It will ruin the reputation of the individual who's being ruled by their emotions. This is, I think, I think this is kind of the nail in the coffin to the whole trilogy. You have, Her Majesty Claudia. You have the people who are born in opulence. You have the people who never had to struggle, and then you have the people who are enabled to think, to feel whatever they want to feel, and to have those feelings be reality. And the pain and suffering this causes for others around them, this goes unexamined for years, sometimes forever. So a lot of times it gets buried forever. But I would say this has been in my experience with at least the falling out of my relationship is why is why I bring it up as an important point. This video went longer than I thought it would go. But the main gist of it is, in order for this dynamic to exist, the enablers have to essentially worship the individual, and they have to worship. They have to be devoutly loyal to the individual's emotional whims, and this is what gives the individual power. And this is also what spoils their morality. Now, this is a slightly different aspect because it's not opulence that we're dealing with here. This is a situation where their morality is being spoiled by others who are simply enabling them to not have accountability. Now, in the next video, I'm just going to do a stream with my face and everything. These little short videos I do. This one's running a little longer. These little short videos I do. This is just to the point of this is just to get certain messages out, and to kind of show guys that a lot of people are dealing with the things that they're dealing with. The issues I was dealing with, never really got this kind of closure for this kind of situation. Um, it was really painful, but it showed me that a lot of the issues that we have with people are are also protected by other people. Um, a lot of things, a lot of righteousness, a lot of good things, a lot of reconciliation that could happen. Um, oftentimes the issues we have come from misunderstandings, but then also um, where it becomes difficult to connect and solve and deal with these issues that is in the fact that other people simply have a different view of what's going on, and they kind of become the enforcers without realizing the complexities of what's happening. Her Majesty Claudia